Shayla, may we please have roll call?
Mayor Ryan,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Witt,
Here.
Commissioner Kolhoff,
Present.
Commissioner Weisenberg.
Here.
Roll call's complete.
Okay, will please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item is approval of today's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kolhoff, Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes for the November 10th, 2025 regular meeting, appropriation ordinance A-112425, and AP payment register 112425.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any commission discussion? Seeing none, with a roll call vote, Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kolhoff, Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item under heading 6 is 6A, public forum. If there's anyone that would like to address the commission on an item not on our current agenda, they may do so at this time. Do we have anyone that would like to address the commission on an item not on our agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to 6B, Wellfield Health and Production Report. Public Works Director Anderson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brad Anderson, the Public Works Director. This will be pretty simple and short. Basically, our well conditions are continuing to just remain steady. We see no problems. I thought it was interesting if you've paid attention to the numbers that currently in the last report from this final week, we pumped 7,772,000 gallons of water. 6,395,110 were put into our system. But I was looking back today from the August totals where we were in the 9.8 million, and the September, the 9.3, and September, later in September, 8.7, and then October, 8.1. So as generally, you can kind of see that as the status of the year and the heat goes away and water consumption begins to slow down by the community members, we see a trend of this happening every year where we use less water through our cooler and winter months. So basically that gives you an update. All the wells are currently running as expected. No issues, no concerns or anything like that at this point. So we're just maintaining our well status. They are not on the overall picture improving, but they are at this point not deteriorating either. So.
Do you typically see like an uptick in replenishment during the winter months? I mean, I know it's usually drier.
At some we can. That's a good time to get that replenishment if we have a wet winter. So we do need to keep that in mind. The one thing we also keep in mind is that snow amount totals through the winter months do not equal what rain amount totals do. But yes, that is the time where we like to regenerate them through the winter and into the spring months with the hoping that we get rains.
Do you have any other questions for Public Works Director Anderson on this? Okay, thank you, Brad. Our next item under business items is 7A, consider adoption of a prioritized stormwater drainage priority list. Public Works Director Anderson.
Okay, Commissioners, we're back here touching base on the adopted prioritized stormwater drainage project list that City Manager Quinde kind of presented to you and gave you information about during the last meeting. We put together some information here. Basically why we're here today, that we would like to have a formal adoption of the city prioritized stormwater drainage project list. Our goal is to ensure our decisions are objective or transparent based on established policy criteria. How we prioritize this list, we reviewed the stormwater management policy, which defines responsibilities and outlines on how the city evaluates drainage issues. We used a framework that we put together based on facilities within the public right-of-way, using that policy's approved criteria. We ranked them based on severity of the drainage problem, public safety considerations, infrastructure impact, benefit to cost efficiency, and long-term community value. The lists are kind of what was brought to you during the last meeting, and they remain the same. The Southeast Drainage Project is the top priority. We believe that it could address several interconnected problems with the drainage in town, and then we ranked accordingly with other locations, such as South Buckeye at Southeast and 6th, 7th and Cedar, 8th and Walnut, 2nd and Walnut, and 2nd and Buckeye. Those are all intersections or areas that we've seen drainage issues at different times during heavy rains. The top priority of the Southeast Drainage project has a site investment at an estimated over $20 million, designed as a strategic coordinated solution for multiple drainage challenges, as mentioned. We, as a staff, have not received any other input from the Public Court Commission at this point. So I think what we're after now is an adoption of some kind of a plan as we move forward. So it creates a clear path for how the city will address our drainage concerns and ensures that current decision-making is aligned with community priorities. From the basis of budgeting, grants, and long-term planning, we'd like to provide transparency to the public about how and why the stormwater projects that we chose are chosen. And we can continue to review it annually and ensure it continues to reflect current conditions. So basically where we're at here today is the options before the commission. We'd like input and/or like to have a plan adopted and prioritize the list as presented. Or if you feel that we need to reprioritize any of the lists that we've honestly put some time into and believe adjustments needed, we would just like a direction and clarity of a plan from you to how city staff can move forward.
I think the thing that's most obvious to me is we've just spent, I don't know how many thousands of dollars and hours talking about Northeast 15th, and that didn't make the list. So I'm curious, I know that that's a concern for a certain number of folks, and then also the area, I think, almost mirrors it on the other side of Buckeye, if I'm not mistaken, kind of in the Northeast 15th, where we've had some other complaints.
Sure. So part of our, when we look back at how we looked at some of these, we looked at the aspect of which of these situations take place within the right of way and on affect city streets. Specifically the Northeast 15th street drainage that we heard a lot about over the last several months did not necessarily affect public right of way. It kind of had more of an effect distinctly on private property area, is kind of why we selected them in the direction we did. I'm not saying that the Northeast 15th Street project problem isn't a concern, but the problem of the actual runoff water is more on the private way. So what we looked at is if you have a right-of-way area and you have a street area, is a flooded street more of a situation for all public to deal with passing cars or anything than on the private side of things. That's the sole reason that project was the way we rank these the way they are, basically.
I guess from my perspective, if we know of drainage issues, let's put them on our priority list. I mean, regardless of where they are, if they're the public, private, whatever. I mean, I think we just spent a few $100,000 fixing something that basically only affected a handful of private owners along Faith Avenue. I guess my goal is let's make the list, let's make it exhaustive and prioritize them the way we think we need to address
If
them.
that's the commission's wish, then that's what we can do. I think I don't know, we went down that road on the Northeast 15th Street project several different times in several ways and came back with the commission several times with more information and we gathered our information, but in the end, we still had no clear path of were we going to do something or were we not? Just to be honest, from my perspective of it.
This list that's presented to the commission for consideration is developed using the adopted city stormwater water management policy, which was adopted by the commission by resolution in 2011. And in there, which is the guidelines we use, it says the city shall maintain only the stormwater drainage facilities which are in the city maintained streets, rights of way, with the exception to culverts and head walls under driveways within the rights of way. Stormwater drainage facilities which are in permanent stormwater easements conveyed to and accepted for maintenance by the city. And it goes on to state that stormwater drainage facilities which are on city property and all other stormwater drainage facilities are the responsibility of the property owner. So the policy clearly outlined that by this list, which is required by this resolution, we were only to focus on those within the city's right of way and not those that are. That's why this list does not include, the private property.
I'm not familiar, Brad, but you might know better than I do. I think you met with the property owners, or at least the people that were affected over on the west side there, kind of by Hilltop Mulberry. Am I getting the right area there?
On the north end, are you,
I was kind of picturing it between Hilltop, but not quite all the way to Mulberry.
yes, correct. It'd be more Mulberry North where it starts to make the rounded area. It's up there in the last name I believe is Boyd
Okay.
area is where we met. And that I still think that was a pretty random situation. Now I know they've had high waters up in there, but the water is channelized in the containment area. It's just when you do get them heavy rains like what they got last time, we see an overabundance amount. So there is drainage up in that area. We went and inspected that right after that big rain. So, but yes, that is one of the areas. I think the question in specifics to that location is the channel that was developed for running water up in that area large enough to hold the capacity. And that water, forgive me, I don't know the name of the church directly north of the high school, but it cuts in behind there and it heads kind of at an angle at a box underneath 14th Street, kind of where the ditch channel in between the middle and the high school is.
And I guess where I'm going with that is that's all on private property as well. That's not none of that's city property or right away.
That's correct. Most of that. Now, I cannot recall, I do not, from my past, obviously, but I do not know or if I've seen any of the information of when any of the ditch channel was put in at some point, whether or not what agreements were had between the city and cutting through the private property that those channels are located on. I do know that the last time we had the heavy, significant rains, that albeit that was a large amount of rain in a very short amount of time, it was enough rain where it pushed the manhole lid up on the drainage box. But when you look at that location, there's water from almost all four directions that are flowing into that area. Gravity, curb and gutter watering that ends up all in that channel. So. But I do personally believe that although a large investment, that with any luck, we can maybe find some grant funding. And if we take care of step one with the Southeast Drainage Project, it could increase the flow capacity of what's able to flow from the downtown area and East 4th, 5th, 6th over in the Brady area. All that water heads to the same place.
And one thing too, because obviously that Southeast Drainage Project is a large dollar item, but it does have it alleviates a lot of issues in a lot of places. And I'm sure this would happen regardless, but if we're applying for grant funding for those, but we have built up enough funds in our stormwater drainage fund, if we could knock off some of the lower items, it's not like we just don't want to keep building that up and not using it to alleviate some issues, knowing that, we'll have a better idea after we get that revised cost estimate. But
I think about every project that we have, honestly, is going to take some kind of infrastructure, unfortunately, Rather if we tackle another one of them in the downtown area, go in a different direction. To get that in place, it's going to probably realistically take a size capacity increase. And then you're going to be talking about excavating right away, either through street or through people's front yard areas within the right of way area. But unfortunately, I just think we're at a point where, yes, the 20 million plus project is a big chunk, but another project is gonna be still significant dollars, and what that is, I don't know. But
Most of those grants, even including a CDS, are some type of.
Mhm.
so back to the original here, we're just kind of looking for a direction on where you would like us to go or move forward, or any ideas that you have at this point.
You look at section 4 of the current stormwater policy, it requires that Brad develops and maintains that list. But it also allows for the a project to be deleted from the list at direction. So what we're asking for is the city commission to either affirm and make that the priority list moving forward, to prioritize it, or tell us about that.
Other than creating the list, which it seems like we're required to do by resolution, I guess what direction does this give you, Brad?
Well, planning wise, it would give us a direction of where we want to focus our efforts on, realistically. If you are wanting to hold off on the big project, then we can focus our efforts 100% on another one. But some of that might have to do with what direction some engineering help would tell us to go, basically in a nutshell. So
Just kind of looking at the list here. Do you, and I don't know how the topology is in this area, but we've got Second at Buckeye, which is our main thoroughfare. Is that distinct from the southeast drainage? Are those not is that water not going to the same place, or is that not?
that water is flowing to the south, basically from that location at Second and Buckeye. So everything north of the railroad tracks, if you can picture that, is flowing east, and then everything on the south end is taking a different route. I'm not saying it doesn't totally end up at the same place, but I don't think it's directly fed into the exact same piping.
Like, help me out with that, because like the southeast drainage, what we're calling southeast drainage here, has fourth at Brady, fourth at Buckeye, fourth at Mulberry, fifth at Cedar, and fifth at Brady, which seem like they should all be going east too.
I do believe you're right. They are going east. If I'm remembering right, I don't have my map in front of me, but I think the drainage projects, once again, when you're looking at Fourth and Buckeye, Mulberry, Fifth, they're all feeding to the east, basically in a gravity flow line. So you also catch a break in the hill up around 13th/14th Street, where everything up towards the crest of that hill is flowing south and getting down into the 4th, 5th, 6th area, and then flowing east. So it's actually capturing a lot more of the area.
Again, I'm not sure how all these catchments are. I'm sure there's probably a little bit of overlap in some of these areas, but I think from a priority standpoint, I think Buckeye, everything on Buckeye is a top priority for me. I mean, that's, it's a state highway, it's a major thoroughfare. There's business, railroads, as we're well aware. When I'm looking at that list, that's the thing that occurs to me first, is we've got most of our business and all of our traffic is going on Buckeye.
Okay. So yeah, if your direction for all of you is starting with the thoroughfare and the state highway route, that's a direction we can definitely go.
Is that Second at Buckeye piece of it, is that a separate project than what we're dealing with the railroad?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just wanted to make,
The railroad is not mentioned in this.
right,
That's one specific situation that we kind of don't have any authority over or anything. Not so sure that any of these would, I mean, these are taking place without throwing the railroad situation into it. But the one thing that, I'd have to look at my flow map again, but the one thing that was done correctly back in the day was the First Street project that goes east from Buckeye. All that was upgraded to a size of capacity that would flow and handle more when that project was done. Unfortunately, when it gets over to the east side where it drops into the main southeast drainage pipe, it's flowing back into a condensed pipe. So that, at least we're ahead of the ball game on First Street is what I'm saying.
I would point out that since that southeast drainage project, it's around $20 million. It takes a while to get funding. So if we do find funding opportunities for the lower range ones, we'll approach those and those. We won't just focus on southeast drainage. That'll be the top priority, trying to find money. We can find money for more work. If those.
So Brad, what would be your reasoning for not moving Second and Buckeye up to third?
Up to third on the list.
Mm-hmm.
No real reason.
Okay.
I think all of them are important. I do see the importance of keeping the main state highway owned one technically. Flow capacity, everything. I think that would be fine, to be honest with
I
you.
just wanted to know if there's a, slam dunk reason why you wouldn't do that, just so we were all aware.
Not necessarily, no. We would just have to, obviously, anything we do there or make improvements is then gonna have to jump through the hurdles of the KDOT world, but
Do we have anything in process as far as like scoping those lines to kind of see what we're dealing with?
meaning engineering wise, meaning
Just running video or getting a visual on any of those lines?
I don't believe I have anything, no, at this point.
We don't have the capacity or try to work with. I should say that.
Mhm.
Figure it out to be done. The interim. Video of that.
I guess that kind of goes hand in hand, I feel like, with prioritizing the problem is understanding it. And I don't think that we have a really good understanding of what the issue is, whether it's organic materials or collapsed lines or just poor
Sizing.
installation or, I mean,
Yeah.
just grade that's causing that.
My opinion right off the top would have to be that it's a sizing issue with the amount of flow capacity that's capable into them. But it's possible that there's other scenarios, just exactly what you mentioned, that could be leading to some of the flow issues.
Do we have detailed engineering maps of all the sizes of all the storm drains?
Yeah, I believe our SAM GIS system has when they came out, specifically did storm drains. I believe we have all that data. And then I think it calculates a flow rate on it from hole to hole. So we have that capacity to look at that. We have to do the math in that, but if manhole A connects to manhole B, we can enter them too, and it'll do the flow rate mapping for us. I thank you all for passing that a year or two ago, because we use that almost daily. And the information that can be put on it is greatly detailed and appreciated. So, but when it comes to looking into more, we would just have to make a decision if we're going to hire someone to come in and find out more information other than just factual information, I guess is what I'm saying.
Once you, commission prioritizes these, for example, if you move second and Buckeye as third, leave the rest there. That tells us these are your priorities. We start looking for funding. What are we doing for the southeast drainage? Then we look at Buckeye and southeast sixth and second and Buckeye. And okay, that's the next priority. What do we have to do to decide what's wrong with it? Camera it, we know that it's collapsed. By getting this based off the criteria in the existing policy, we know which order to start investigating.
Brad, what you said you use that GIS system regularly. What information would you need to have kind of a full understanding of the whole system? Because to me, it seems like maybe the technology's out there that you tell it, hey, we just got an inch of rain, what happens? And then we can determine I'll just tell you my personal experience. I used to live kind of in the, I guess, Ninth and kind of in that Ninth and Brady area, and it seems to me like the problem has gotten dramatically worse in the last 10 years. I don't know if that's, again, that's just my observation. I don't know if that's real or not. And so that's why I'm wondering, is it a buildup of organic material? Is it a collapsed line? And just kind of, I guess, getting a better understanding of the architecture of that system. Is it, one collapsed line down by First and Brady that's causing everything to back up all the way up the road there, or exactly what's going on? Is there resources that you need to have in that GIS system so you can kind of model that better?
Possibly. I'm not gonna say yes or no, and that sounds cliche in this, but what we do see when you open a manhole up when we get the hard rains is you see the water flowing pretty hard. So that tells you that if there's any blockage or anything in there, it's got to be pretty minimal, because some of these are fast enough and strong enough at the condensed. What I mean by condensed is the size capacity of the tube to get the water flowing and moving. So that tells me that any blockages would normally get flushed out, and just like you flush anything out, so everything flows. What I don't know, once again, my personal assumption is that we just have a size capacity issue, and it trickles from everywhere that's existing in the standard pipes that are on the streets until it dumps into the bigger pipe, and the bigger pipe at that point can't flow any. And you got to envision that this all this water is not under pressure. So if you have a size capacity of a tube, you're not filling that whole tube out. It just is not going to. Now it can increase, but water that's not pressurized is not going to flow full capacity. So when it comes to the SAM GIS, it's great data to have, but basically it's a benchmark for how our services, utilities, and all that flow and are utilized to where things go. So the question is, can we get more technology to help us understand it more? I don't know about that, but if we're wanting to, I guess if it's your commission's desire for us to accept what plan we want to go to and where we want to start, and if we're going to put more expenditure into investigating what truly is going on, then that would help us know also.
Are all those maps public? I mean, are those on our website?
There are internal information.
They're internal.
Yes.
How many areas of outflow are there? Obviously, there's one that goes to the river, some of that goes to the east, some goes to Mud Creek. Is there, I guess, as I think about the problem, you would start at the end and work your way back up, right? So where's the water coming out at, and work your way back up, because anything downstream is going to cause issues all the way upstream.
Yeah. So the main one, when we talk about the southeast drainage, the outlet is clear out at the river, south east of the wastewater treatment plant. So that's the one reason why we're talking a high expense there.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about replacing piping from the river all the way here to the basically Brady here in town, we're talking connecting and a lot of dollars there. But I don't have the exact number of the other outlets around, but yes, there are some that flow to mud, depending on where you're at in town, honestly, where the breaks are.
I'm just kind of looking at how this lies. Why wouldn't we just, I mean, take that from the city limits to Mud Creek instead of going, a half mile or a mile down to the river?
That I can't answer. I'd have to probably get some engineering backing on that, and they'd probably have to survey it and shoot it. And
something that'll be good, it's broaching outside of the scope of this, or it's tied to this. Well, it'd be good for you to get a copy of that study that was done with the southeast drainage issue. It answers a lot of those questions.
Okay.
So, like that one line that you're talking about that kind of cuts and goes through, none of that has easements to it. It's collapsed in multiple locations from my understanding. And so, prior discussions, this is going on 5 years ago. An approach the commission could take in the future of that is to go from underground to open drainage. There's greater capacity there, but it also requires easement acquisition. And so, but long term, that's probably what makes the most sense for that last stretch of drain. And
Yes, I do remember there was a section in that had an example of open ditch drainage, and yes, cost effectiveness and everything, but then you open up to new cans of worms with easement and everything else. So
right. Yeah.
Nothing.
I think it was a fairly big cost savings to do.
Long term,
Yeah,
it's what
yeah.
makes the most sense because then you don't have to worry about repairing concrete down the road. It's
Mhm.
just all open drainage. So
I guess I'm not too hung up on the list of priorities. I'm just mostly interested in solving the problem and solving it as efficiently as possible. And so,
Mhm.
um, I think hopefully we're all on the same page there. Um, so again, I don't see any problem with the list. I just want to make sure we're kind of attacking the problem in a way that's going to get the solutions that our citizens expect.
one thing I'll look at, and let's see, we got two of our commissioners elect here in the room. Any thoughts from you guys on this? This will be something you guys will be talking about because one thing to point out here, just looking into the future, it's something that this should be annually looked at. So something for you guys to mark down to make sure that that happens. But wanted to see if either of you two had any thoughts on the list.
Sure, and I think one of the reasons we were here, and it's obvious, it's just kind of been mentioned real quick, but from the city staff side of things, we kind of already have our priorities with, not priorities, but a list of where the known problems are, and so ultimately, what we don't want to happen, or what I don't want to happen, is I make a decision to try and tackle this specific drainage project, and then the public and or commission decides we should have went another way, and to get everybody on the same page with some direction on where we want to go is why I would like some clarification on how do we tackle this? What steps do you want us to do now? Do we take no action at all right now? Is another thing. And I know that no matter what steps we take with any one of these policies, the dollar amount to get to fixing any one of them is going to be significant, even the smaller ones, to be honest with you. So, and if they want to step in and say anything, they're more than welcome to right now.
Brad, just kind of the way that again, I think I've said just about enough here, but I think as long as we're making progress, I don't think anybody has any reason to be too unhappy. But I do think that, whether it's through computer modeling or I don't know what other tools you might have access to, whether it is just kind of really carefully choosing the areas that you scope. I guess my feeling is that there's probably a few areas that are causing most of the problems. I don't think, I mean, maybe they just built the whole city wrong, but that
Right.
doesn't seem very likely.
Well, you know what? I hate to say that, but there may be a little truth to that back when it was put in. But we can't, we don't know what happened back in the days. But ultimately, I get that everybody's residence, everybody's property is important, the street they live on. So if you get somebody that lives on 4th or 5th Street where they know that the known problems are, and we choose to do the downtown area first, then some clarity or direction of, why wasn't it ours that was chosen first type deal. So, and once again, I don't think you can go wrong with, we've identified the problems. There's situations that can be improved on all of them, but now how do we attack them is where we're at now. So, and we're not saying anybody's property is more important than the other person's, whether it be a downtown business or a resident, but that's kind of why where we're at right now.
I guess kind of to that point, I think if we were to lose Buckeye for whatever reason, that would be a huge economic detriment to everybody, no matter where they live in the city.
Sure.
But to me, that's why I think Buckeye has got to be a priority.
With that, I would make a motion to approve a prioritized stormwater drainage list with the amend or the adjustment of moving 6 second at Buckeye to position 3, and then the rest fall down after that.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
Is the southeast drainage study that you referenced on the website that you know of? Is it on the,
I don't think so.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's lengthy.
It was a good 1-inch 3-ring binder full.
Yeah. Yep. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, would roll call vote. Commissioner Kolhoff.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is 7B, consider approval of disposal of city-owned property. Interim City Manager Quinde.
Tonight, we're asking the commission to consider declaring certain city-owned property as surplus so that we can sell it at public auction. The items are no longer needed for operations and they've outlived their usefulness to the departments. The city currently doesn't have a formal policy on getting rid of surplus property, so we rely on the statutes, which requires that we get permission from the governing body. So why does it matter that we're getting rid of the property? It frees up some storage. It takes things off of our books that we're not insuring. And then it also converts these non-productive assets into revenue through the auction. And it also promotes transparency, accountability, and stewardship of public resources. So tonight we're asking the commission to declare the property surplus and authorize the sale at public auction. And that list was included in your packet on those items.
Any questions for staff on this item?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to declare the identified property as surplus and authorize city staff to sell it at public auction.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any commission discussion? Seeing none, would roll call vote. Commissioner Meisenberg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Commissioner Kolhoff.
Aye.
Myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is 7C, direction on concession structures and tenancy at city-owned fairgrounds. Interim City Manager Quinde.
Tonight, we're asking the city commission to provide policy direction on how to move forward with 2 concession buildings that currently sit on city-owned property at the fairgrounds. This will include clarifying the tenancy status, addressing code compliance, and determining the future use or disposition of those 2 structures. So the city owns 2 parcels of land. Well, there's 2 parcels of land that we're talking about tonight. They own much more than that have concession stands on them. Those 2 parcels of land are zoned P for public use, which is important later in the conversation. The 2 buildings, Mr. Gaywith has been using the property and claimed ownership of the structures. He wanted to sell 1 or more structures to another party for the purpose of opening a Mexican restaurant. It was conveyed to Mr. Gaywith that that use is not allowed under the current zoning of public use, that it would have to be rezoned for it to be done that. He believed that he was using the city land with a lease. We cannot find a lease. We have no record of payments for a lease, and he was unable to obtain one. We also asked him to provide records of ownership of the 2 buildings, which he did provide the city with 2 bills of sale. I sent him a letter back in October that the city, absent a written lease, that we consider his use of the land in those 2 buildings as a tenancy at will, which means that it could be ended at any time with reasonable notice. I also reiterated that under the current zoning, the buildings could not be used for a restaurant, and that a lease would be needed for any future owners. So since he has provided bills of sale showing that he purchased those in 2012, like I said, there's no record that the city has agreed to those buildings could be treated as personal property. And what that means is generally any building is considered attached to the property. So you specifically have to separate a building from the real property or the land that it sits on. We have no record of that, which is important. because the structures are permanently affixed, and they're identified in the county records as lease building. So under the statutes, buildings that are attached to the land are presumed fixtures unless they're specifically reserved or separated by a written instrument, they're considered part of the property. So it said Mr. Gaywith expressed interest in selling one or both of those buildings for somebody to use a restaurant. That's not allowed according to the current zoning. The use of concession stands is allowed when it's done during the fair. So we've outlined 3 options for the commission that we're asking for a policy direction to clear this up. The first option, which is the one that staff recommends, is to enter into a written lease agreement with Mr. Gaywith that would outline the roles and responsibilities of each party. And then part of that would require him to obtain a certificate of occupancy to use those buildings. A couple of them are in pretty poor shape, so we want to make sure that they meet city code. And then he would be able to maintain the use of those structures for fairground appropriate purposes. The other options would be for the commission to terminate the tenancy at will. That would end his occupancy right and then allow him a reasonable amount of time, whatever that would be, to remove the buildings. And then the third option would be to terminate the tenancy and to retain the buildings based on case law and the statutes. It says they're attached. You have nothing showing that they weren't, and then tear the buildings down. So the fairgrounds, the commission knows, are an important asset. So the decisions about structures, the tenants, and zoning should support public use, safety, and long-term planning. So the reason we're asking for the policy direction is, one, it follows under your policy authority as a second-class city, but it's also important to guide staff's future use of the buildings, the city's approach to leasing and tenancy, and code compliance and property disposition. As I mentioned, after several conversations, our recommendation to the city commission would be to enter into a written lease agreement with Mr. Gaywith, if we can negotiate one that's acceptable to both parties. And included in that would be, he would have to obtain a certificate of occupancy within a reasonable amount of time, which would be part of the lease agreement. And if he were not, then that would be automatically terminate the agreement. But whichever direction you tell us you'd like to do, we can start working on that with Mr. Gaywith and getting the right paperwork started.
Questions for staff on this item?
Yeah, one of the things, so I'm saying this, acknowledging I've thought of some questions that I'm just thinking of now. And how these are 2 concession buildings, but then there's also some other ones in there. And I'm going to ask a question that I haven't. So give me some grace here. Do we have lease agreements with those other ones?
Excuse me, we're currently researching that also.
Okay.
Whether or not we have those.
Right. I'm just thinking of as this decision also kind of sets precedent. Well,
Correct.
it does for these other ones. And then thinking of those other buildings as stakeholders, but then also the Fair Board as a stakeholder, because this all meshes into that,
Right.
that whole use of that area. So that's where I have some pause about making a decision right now until having an understanding of all those other stakeholders. Right. The only exception is if Mr. Gaywith had any sense of urgency of wanting the commission to move forward on this, or if waiting to get feedback on those other items would be okay.
He's been conveying to us the urgency of making the sale, but we're in the position that you can make the sale, but they can't use them for what they want to purchase them for. Right. And even if you made the sale as it stands today, the new owners would have to enter into a lease agreement with the city. So I don't think that really matters. And as a side note, we met with part of the Central Kansas Free Fair Board today, talking about the 1996 agreement that outlines what they can use, when they can use it, roles and responsibilities. It doesn't reflect how things are operating now. So we had a really good discussion with them on changing that from a lease to a management agreement of the facilities and whatnot. Great conversation, but my point to that is meeting with them regularly as far as capital planning, land use, and that type of stuff, opening up that communication where we meet with them at least once a year and we even get input from them on capital improvements, say for the stadium and that type of stuff. So we've opened that channel of communications, what I'm saying.
Great.
I think I'm in agreement with you here. I'm not really ready to make a decision on this. I think there's a lot of history to those buildings. At least, I'm not sure which buildings are which, but I've heard of those being sold as personal property multiple times throughout the years. And so I don't think we need to kick the hornet's nest today. And again, I'm not sure that that a structure that's used for a week, a year needs that level of scrutiny that someone's home or business needs. So that's kind of my hesitation. I think we need to have a better understanding before we make any decisions specific to Mr. Gaywith's buildings.
Are you talking code wise
Yeah.
in that? Okay.
What information would you like, the commission would like for us to bring back to them, other than if there's a lease agreement on the other two buildings?
Yeah, I would just
But-
like a comprehensive, I guess, overview and so that way it can, we can have matching lease agreements with if the occupants of the other two buildings, if they want to enter in, that way it can all just be cohesive.
Well, I don't know exactly what the arrangement is, but I think again, it sounds like I'm almost certain that it's not written at this point, but there's some sort of agreement that these owners of personal property on the city's land have had with the Fair Board where they pay some amount of money every year when they open up their concession stands to the Fair Board. That's my understanding. Don't take that as fact.
That is a fee that they pay, like a concession fee, or like the food trucks would pay.
Okay, so that is at least rooted in fact.
Yes, that doesn't have to do with them using the property, just their fee for operating during it.
Yeah, because I believe that it mirrors the food trucks at the
Yes.
fairgrounds. It's the same, just flat fee.
Yes, sir,
Is that paid to the city or to the fair?
to the fair.
To the fair. And I guess kind of just on a broader discussion, I don't have any desire to deprive citizens of private property. I mean, I understand that it is the city's dirt underneath it. But like I said, I think there's a long history of those buildings being privately owned and operated. So I don't have any appetite to deprive citizens of their property.
Well, I think the first option was the intent, is not to do that, is to enter into a lease agreement. So the use of that land is formalized. What he can expect from us, what we can expect from him, a term, and then he can use those buildings as it's allowed in that current zoning, as long as he gets a certificate of occupancy, which would be required if he were to build a new building. That option that we're recommending is the one that doesn't take his property from him, his private property. The second option would be to say, take your buildings. I mean, he'd get to keep his property. That's probably not very cost effective for him. And the third option is, which we did not recommend, would basically say we're taking it. It's not yours. We wouldn't recommend that because it's not fair. And just because in the past he hasn't had an agreement, what we're trying to do now is rectify that and make sure that we're operating where everybody knows what's what. But if you'll let us know what information that you would like for your consideration, we can get that and bring it back to you.
Yeah, personally, I just want to know what the status is on the other buildings out there
Okay.
and just make sure that we make those all cohesive. So,
Yeah, and just that the direction of the city is leaning towards that option one, and then getting feedback from those stakeholders if they have any thoughts
The
around
Fair
that.
Board?
Yeah, the Fair Board or even those potential those other building owners.
Okay, yeah. And the Fair Board, we got feedback from today as great. They like the idea of a lease and, well, any of the ideas they actually like, but having something formal so they know.
Right.
Yes.
and do you have a timeline on, we just table this to the next meeting? Do you think that would allow enough time or?
Yes, to find out who owns those and get, if we can get a hold of them, should be no problem at all.
Sure.
Have you kind of contemplated what a lease might look like?
No, sir.
I mean, I guess I think it might be worth having that discussion here. If somebody owns a building or a trailer and they use it 1 week a year during the fair, what is a reasonable lease for that property? which, let's be honest, has no use for 51 weeks out of the year.
I guess for me, I would just expect staff to check into neighboring communities and see what, just get a comparable rate.
And perhaps what, if the other two do have leases, what are their terms?
Right.
I mean, I'm just thinking outside the box here maybe, but I think it's pretty unlikely that the scenario exists on a widespread basis throughout the state. I could be way off, but I don't know if, I guess like the ones I've been to are Salina, right? I don't know if those are privately owned, but it doesn't seem like it.
No.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I
That's
guess I
kinda
would
what-
just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's why I just kind of want more information and before we entered, I mean, even in 2 weeks, if we come back and decide to go with option one and negotiate those, that's not us actually approving a lease, then we would
No, that's just
later
giving us
approve the
direction.
lease.
Yes, if you, in 2 weeks, say, go with option one, then our next step would be to reach out with Mr. Gaywith, and if he has counsel, all of them, and just work something out that works for everybody.
With that, I'll make a motion to table this item until the next meeting.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any commission discussion? Seeing none, we will move to roll call vote. Vice Mayor Miller,
Sorry, I couldn't get it off. Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kolhoff.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg.
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item under items for discussion is 8A, review and consideration of an agreement with the Kansas League of Municipalities for the search for a permanent city manager, interim city manager Quinde.
Yes, I believe on Friday, I sent out to the commission the final revised draft of the league's executive administrative position search agreement. They also had a questionnaire for the governing body and a list for a committee if the commission chooses to go that route. So tonight, I just want to talk about that process. We did ask for some changes from their standard agreement, which the revisions that we addressed, it prohibited us from reproducing any of the documents that we received. And we asked them to change that for document reproduction so we could comply with the Open Records Act as required, but also for internal distribution. The early termination responsibilities, as it was originally written, they could terminate for no reason with a short-term notice, and basically it stops there. And then mutual indemnification. The original agreement held that the city had to indemnify them, so we asked that they add that they have to indemnify the city. So we asked for those to make sure that the agreement's balanced, enforceable, and protects the city's interest. Tonight, and in your packet, you have two timetables. I asked them to produce for you. One is if you were to consider approving that tonight, they get started tomorrow, and what that looks like. The other one is if you wanted to wait, think about it, and consider approving it on December 8th and what that timeline looks like. So what we're asking for tonight is either for you to approve the agreement and have them get started, or wait until December 8th, and then I'll just notify them that that's when you'll take it up again.
I'm personally fine with approving it this evening so we can continue moving forward on it. But obviously love to hear
I'm good with
consensus from the
approving
rest.
tonight, too.
Vice Mayor Miller, do you have any input on that, whether we approve it tonight or at the next meeting?
No, I don't. I think waiting until next meeting would be okay with me.
Okay. Yes. Are you all still amenable to approving it now?
Yeah, you asked for some discussion or some feedback regarding a committee.
Yeah, one of the things that
Do that.
they'll ask for is that, where they can start is for the questionnaire to be completed by the commission. We'll submit that to them, and if you choose a committee, or if it's just the governing body, that list that was in your packet, a selection committee.
Sure.
So those would be things that, if you approve it tonight, that we'd like to send in with it.
Sure. My first thought is, I think, obviously the governing body, the two newly elected commissioners, and then I would like to get at least a couple community stakeholders to sit in on that too. I think that would be helpful just to get an, outside of government viewpoint.
And I think for the initial purposes, if you list the governing body, the commissioners elect, and how many ever stakeholders you want, if you put stakeholder 1, 2, we can get that to them pretty quickly.
Okay.
Unless you want to decide that tonight, which either
I
way.
wouldn't want to pick somebody if we haven't even talked to him yet.
True, true, yeah.
I think we can,
The questionnaire would definitely have to be completed so they can get started.
how many people, I guess, would we anticipate joining us?
Also, we'd have 5, and we'd have 7 in the meantime until after January. Then it dropped back down to 5. I mean, I would say 2 or 3 community members. You don't want too many chiefs, but
Do you want to maybe just bring a couple of names, have everybody, there's somebody in the hat for the next meeting? Does that work with the timeline?
I can double check I wouldn't see why not.
as long as we put a placeholder for, you thinking 2, 3,
Say 10 max. That'd give us the ability to put up to 3 people.
up to 3.
You don't get
So we
three.
can do up to
you don't
3
have-
community stakeholders. And then, like I said, after that second Monday in January, even if we had 3 community stakeholders, it dropped back down to 8 anyway. So
How do you want to do the questionnaire? You want to do that as a group, or everybody fill it out and send it to me this evening?
I was looking at that questionnaire. Most of that is just fact-based stuff. I mean, they were asking, do we have fire, water, electric type of, I
A lot of
mean,
that stuff we can fill out.
okay, I think actually it said the clerks to attest to it. I don't mean to put that on your agenda, but
Yeah.
it looked like it was all pretty well just fact-based.
Okay.
I'd be fine with the city completing it.
maybe we can just submit the remainder that's not fact-based to you,
Yes. Yeah, we'll fill in the fact-based,
ideally in the next couple days. I mean, I can get it filled out tonight and scan it as soon as I get to the office in the morning.
yeah, if you can do it the next couple of days, that'd be great, because they'll be closed Thursday. Or you
Sure.
get it to them by Wednesday, because I'm not sure how fast they're gonna get on it this week anyhow.
Right.
Gives us a little bit of time.
Okay.
So, okay.
That I would look for a motion to approve item 8A.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is 8B, review and consideration regarding bids received for swimming pool painting and crack repair. Parks and Rec Director Tim Brook.
Good afternoon. The end of October, we issued a bid request for painting and crack repairs at the swimming pool. The last time that it was painted was in 22, and that was just the center portion of the pool where the swim lanes are. And then it had been back in 15 when the deep end and zero entry were done. We have a lot of chipping, a lot of crack repair to do. So we put the bid out for the entire pool, and this includes the baby pool. And as you saw, we got a wide range of pricing back in. After Brendan met all of these here or at the pool for, they had to go over it, look at the pool and everything. There was one company that did not, so we did not accept that bid. And then check their references as well. And so our recommendation is to go with Wildcat Painting. They have been in contact with us before and kind of knew we're going in this direction. But they came in as a low bid. We got good references on them. They do other local city pools. They're all came in kind of doing the same preparation with the brush blasting. There's crack repair to be done, all using the TSP cleaning to remove any of the chemicals and debris off the surface, and then doing the painting. So we're just asking that you go ahead and approve the bid so we can get that relayed back to them, and then this will get done as soon as they can, early spring, so we can open up in May.
So with that low bid being so much lower, was there, I guess, are there any obvious reasons of why that's the case, or just timelines and
I think
workload?
that, and I think that, I mean, like I said, they've been in contact before. When they've presented to us before, it was a little higher, so I think they wanted to get the business. So they came in a little lower, but they're doing all the same work that the others. The second bid was from Wamego, and they had the same process, recommended the same process, so.
What is the typical life on that?
So they're recommending that we really do this every 3 to 4 years, and we won't have to go to this extent. So therefore, it won't cost as much.
Yeah, I think you're hitting right on the point there. I think
Yeah.
this last year was probably, it needed to be done before last year
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
Do you have a plan for just keeping that on like a maintenance?
Yeah, so we'll have a maintenance plan. I think we even already have it on the CIP plan to do it every 4 years, but that way too, we can, with the new plan that John's helping us put together, we can do, save money each year to, or put money aside each year to be ready for that, so. And as far as funding for it, the one portion will come from our remaining portion from the pool library fund, and then the rest will come from the rec special projects.
I think it was 16 and change left in
Yeah.
that,
Yep,
in that special fund, that special sales tax fund.
correct, yes.
Any further questions for Kelly on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the bid with Wildcat Painting for the amount of $38,950 to paint and perform crack repairs at the Abilene swimming pool.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
I would like to table it, just since this is the first time it's been on the agenda and there's no urgency. I guess I'd just like to get any feedback. If there is any feedback on any of the vendors, I just want to give the public a chance to do that, so. I'm going to vote against it, even though I think it's a something that obviously needs to be done. But I would like to see it on the next agenda.
Kelly, is there any timing issue? Do you have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Kolhoff,
Nay.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item is 8C, review of farmland leases. City Clerk Moore.
Mayor and Commissioners, we have reviewed the current leases that we have in place for farmland agreements, and have City Attorney Martin has drafted new agreements. The main changes are they are calendar year expiration dates, December 31st. And instead of stating a fee in the agreement, we are going to stated that we'll go off the USDA NASS Kansas County cash rent value for Dickinson County each year to charge the rent. The agreements were sent out to the tenants last week for their review, and with the letter that said, if you agree, we'll bring them to City Commission approval at December 8th meeting.
Okay. Any discussion on that item?
How much do the current rates vary from that USDA rate?
I don't have it in front of me. The current rates is $40 per acre on the farmland, and I believe $30 an acre on the hay agreement. But this site breaks that down based on what they're using the land for, whether it's pasture, hay, irrigated crops. So I think we do have one agreement right now that we bill this way for pasture land. And I just built that not too long ago. I
It's
was
prob-
thinking it was in the 60s.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher anyway. Is there a process if the current tenants don't want to pay that? What's the process for leasing that back out?
I, yeah, we wouldn't renew the lease with them, and then I guess I honestly don't know how it's been put out there in the past. The current tenants that we have in place have been here for several years. Just have to find if there's interest somewhere.
I would imagine you could post like a
RFP.
request, yeah, like basically
Right.
a RFP for tenants of farmland.
Mhm.
Would be my preferred method of doing it, so.
Anyway, this is just information for this minute meeting and the agreements we brought back next meeting.
And then how was that USDA, that benchmark, I guess, chosen? Just a, I know,
It's the benchmark that we use for the other current one that we
Okay.
have, that's how we bill on.
I was just curious. I know K-State Ag Econ has an ag manager website that does it based on, per county as well. So I didn't know if that would be, just since they're, based right here, if that would be more. No, it's through K-State, Ag Econ department. Yeah, it's called Ag Managers. I've used it before. That's why I've used it in college and private life. So I was just curious if how that was chosen. They're probably going to be fairly similar. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to 8D, review of revised purchasing policy. Interim City Manager Quinde.
Yes, this is a continued review and discussion of recommended revisions to the city's purchasing policy. For those in the public and for the commissioners-elect, the purchasing policy is the framework that guides how the city acquires goods, services, equipment, and public improvements in a fair, transparent, and fiscally responsible manner. We're not asking for any action tonight, just a continued discussion. As I mentioned before, the policy was last revised in October 2023. We did a comprehensive review to bring the policy into alignment with Kansas law, federal procurement standards, and best practices from the Government Finance Officers Association, the League, the ICMA, and the CCMFOA. And the revisions modernize the policy, improve clarity, strengthen transparency, and ensure consistency across departments. We've incorporated commission feedback from 2 weeks ago in the revised version 2. We removed the maintenance service contract exception. The prior draft allowed for maintenance service contracts under $25,000 to bypass the normal procedures. We removed that because we couldn't find a good way to word it to meet what the commission wanted. And we also deleted the whole section on the equipment reserve plan purchase section. What that prior draft included was language that would allow certain equipment purchases that were on the approved plan without a second commission approval. However, like I said, this section has been fully removed. The other updates, this policy provides a clear structure, a professional organization. We expanded some sections, updated thresholds, updated sole source purchasing rules. There's broader criteria, including compatibility needs, proprietary systems, urgent repairs. We did add a section for used equipment purchases, a section that requires approval from the city manager and documentation as we're transitioning to requisition and purchase orders through the Tyler technology software that the city's been using now for probably a year and a half. Enhanced procurement methods, expanded detail for requests for proposals, invitations for bid, and qualification-based selection. The intended outcomes of these updates is to strengthen transparency and public trust in how we use tax dollars and user fees, consistency and accountability across departments, ensuring compliance with state and federal procurement standards, especially when it comes to grants received, and enhancing operational efficiency without compromising oversight. So we will welcome more feedback from the commission.
Do you want to give a real world, and I know I think Kale maybe had just had a situation like this, a real world example of that, source purchases of used equipment?
Give you a real world example, because I'll just mess it up.
Yeah,
Lose
so
my notes.
that's
Sorry, Chief Strunk, not Kale. It's hard.
that's what we used to purchase the most recent fire truck.
Mhm.
And they've already bid all that stuff out, so you don't got to get 3 competitive bids. That they already got that in their system where the companies already have like each product bid out. So that's how you get that procured price.
Yeah, and you were able to, I think, snag a very good deal on a truck recently, weren't you?
Yeah, but that was on a used one.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking
okay,
about.
so, okay,
Yeah.
I thought you was
Yep.
on sole source, but yeah, that, we just found that, just a private listing from a fire department in Colorado.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's what, yeah, because it talks about in their source purchases of used equipment when immediate action is needed. So it puts in policy a way for you to not miss out on something that's going to save the city a lot of money.
well, and before we found that on the private listing, we'd actually been watching some on like auctions, and it makes it difficult because we kind of had a budget, but by the time you know that it's gonna stay under that budget, there's no time to get approved.
Some other examples that I've had is sometimes you can find a used mower that like parks will use. And if they're $25,000 and you can get one for, great condition for 10,000 because it's on public auction, those are going to go quick. So that's the reason in there.
Further questions or discussion on this?
Yeah, I think I thought maybe we discussed this with the previous purchasing policy, but under section 3, it says the city manager may report any purchases within this threshold to the city commission at their discretion. I guess I would like there to be a positive responsibility for the city manager to.
For which one? I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
Certainly. This is on section 3 under purchasing. It's about midway through. There's a sentence that starts, the city manager may report any purchases within this threshold to the city commission at their discretion. I would just have a positive responsibility to report any of those that were purchased.
Is this under social? I don't have the revised.
This is under section 3 purchasing. That's
Okay.
under the broad paragraph.
Yeah, anytime that, and we can change that to shall, but anytime that there's something that, whether it's sole source purchasing or emergency purchasing, or any threshold that requires your notification, well, my practice would be to notify you by email that same day, but it should be required that you're notified at the next regular meeting, what it was and why it was done that way.
Mhm.
But yes, but we can make that change.
And I think, and maybe this is just nomenclature, but I thought maybe there was some discrepancies on the names. There's like department directors and supervisors having different thresholds. And I'm apologizing, I'm thumbing through it here.
I remember off the top of my head, $2,500 the supervisor can approve. Well, actually, I still require that the department head codes it and initials it. Anything from $2,501 to what's their limit? Okay, let me off the top of your head. What's your limit? Anything from $2,500 and above requires a purchase order, then I have to approve. And anything of $25,000 or above requires commission approval unless it's under one of those exceptions. For example, the Evergy bill. So
Yeah, and I apologize. I was looking at the that was the credit limit on the cards that I was
Mhm.
that I had identified. When you say a purchase card, that's essentially just a debit card.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion?
Okay, I will make that addition to the affirmative notification.
I think that is basically being done now with the APs and everything that's going out. But I just think it'd be helpful to point that
Memorialize
out.
it. Yeah.
Okay, if we have no further questions, we'll move to Item 8E, review of the reallocation of unused general obligation temporary note proceeds. Interim City Manager Quinn.
Yeah, again, this is just a continuing discussion. We're not asking for any decision tonight. I do have to apologize to the commission and public and thank Commissioner Witt because when he brought up the question, so what you're saying is, I should have led with that. The idea when I brought this to the commission for jumping into all the numbers and the whys and all that is providing you with an option based on your challenge that you're facing financially and not defer certain things that you consider a priority. So just to quickly go over it for anybody that wasn't here before and for the commissioners-elect, the city issued $10.3 million in general obligation temporary notes to fund the industrial park improvements, the Buckeye Avenue preservation, which has been commonly referred to as C-CLIP 1 and 2, and the recreation improvements, with the first project being the ball fields. Of that amount, 9.15 million was credited to separate project funds, with the commission authorized us to establish those to keep track of those expenditures by project. The remaining $1.17 million, which is invested in certificates of deposits, was borrowed to cover interest between now and the time those mature in 2029. The city borrowed the full estimated project cost. I'm assuming that was because the thought was that both grants were drawdowns. Buckeye was estimated a $1.5 million project. We're receiving an $800,000 grant total for both of them. But we borrowed $2.145 million for that project. The industrial park improvements were estimated at 3.45. We're receiving a $2.5 million grant. It was assumed that that was a drawdown, and I'm still waiting on general counsel from Commerce, but I believe that once you can show that you have the $750,000 in the bank, we can ask for that and put it into the bank or draw a little bit of interest before it's expended. So for that project, we borrowed $3.7 million. Anyhow, this has resulted in excess proceeds that you can't pay back early. The soonest you can redeem the temporary notes is March of 2027. I won't go through all the numbers again unless you'd like me to. The thought process was you have about, based on current cost estimates, you have about $2 million that you can either, one, redeem early in March of 2027, or two, if you choose, you can reallocate those for projects that have been deferred, whatever those would be. Some of the suggestions that we've been talking about internally are road projects have been deferred, the bridges that there was a discussion about putting a polymer overlay, and some equipment that's been deferred. So 2 weeks ago, I followed this discussion with the capital improvement and equipment reserve plan for the general fund, which is funded by property taxes. That was written outside of the organization, as I was proposing all of those items to be funded through this. What I'm proposing is that, one, the commission consider, does it make sense to reallocate some or all of those funds that won't be used to deferred projects, to save money down the road because those costs are going to continue to increase, or to say, no, we're going to defer all those projects in the general fund's capital improvement fund and the equipment reserve until at least 2027, because there's no money in there in 2026. So there's to balance that out. If the commission says, yes, we're interested in it, then our next step would be to bring back a timeline and steps. This is how long it would take, and this is what you have to do. Here's a list of the projects that have been deferred. Which ones are a priority to you to reallocate? And then we start that process, because it would require a public hearing and passing of some resolutions. The other option is you say, nope, we're good. We'll just hold on to that money until 2027 and pay it back when we can start redeeming those early. The one factor, I guess, that it's variable, but you can consider is right now we're receiving arbitrage, which in lay terms means that we're receiving more interest on that money we've got in CDs than we're paying on interest on those notes. You could result in negative arbitrage moving forward as interest rates continue to drop. Then you may be paying more in interest for borrowing that money than for investing it. So just here to answer any other questions. And
So in that CIP list that you had provided last time, is there a way, and I guess I know there is, but would you be able to provide kind of a ranking by severity?
of the things that we've deferred,
Mhm.
yes.
I think
Yes.
that would be helpful. But I also think we don't know the true cost of any of these projects yet.
Correct.
We had cost estimates and thankfully they came in below what we were estimating. A couple of them did. But we don't know the true cost of each project yet. So I don't want to make a hard decision without getting into those projects first.
Right, and we wouldn't ask you to make a decision until you've got all the information that you want. I guess now it's no, quit talking about it. We're just going to move forward. We're going to defer projects and capital improvement projects and equipment for until at least 2027, or bring us some information, prioritize them, put some costs there. But as you mentioned, you won't know those true costs until you bid it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we would know more next year. And that we could make a sound decision on. So that's what causes me to want to push it to 27. 'Cause we just have no idea what we're going to get when we get into these projects.
Oh, you're talking about the existing project?
Yes, yeah. It looks like we have a surplus right now because of the cost savings, but we don't know.
Yeah, right now, the engineer's estimate for the industrial park is $3 million, which is
Right.
below what it originally was. But as I mentioned, they're doing a sanitary sewer study on that lift station, which I think could raise your price by $900,000. They don't think so. So realistically, that could be a $4 million project, which would, if you take the $2.5 million grant, you're responsible for $1.5 million. So even if it's 4 million, you get 2.5, you pay 1.5, you borrowed 3, you still have 2 million you can pay back early. So you're doing well as far as how much you have borrowed and the grants. I could not see, I mean, it's not unlikely, or I can't say it wouldn't happen, but you borrowed $3 million and some change for the industrial park. You have a $2 million grant. I couldn't see those costs coming in at $5 million. The ballpark, that's limited at $4 million because that's all the sales tax will service as far as debt for that. And then the Buckeye project, you borrowed $2 million for that, $1.9 million for that. You have 800,000 in grants. I couldn't see that going in over at 2.7 million. And if the cost came in at 2.7 million, if I was still here, my recommendation would be to reject all those bids and start over, because that's almost $1 million more than the estimate.
Yeah, and we had a previous or prior C-clip project that we didn't know the base was needing replaced until we tore up the road because you don't know. And so we actually had to approve a change order, call a special meeting and approve a change order for that.
But this one, my understanding, you're just doing a mill and overlay. But you're taking 2 inches off on Buckeye and putting 2 inches down.
Yeah, I guess just the point, you just have no idea what you're going to run into.
Right.
That's my feeling on it right now.
I think kind of part of the challenge with the industrial park is we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. We're building this field of dreams out there, and we don't even know if anybody's going to need sewer out there. It could just be all surface for a certain user. And so I guess I feel like we need to.
You have to size it for what you think you're going to get. So you may be putting in something much bigger than you need.
Well, I think you might need to sell it before you build it. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying is, know what your user is going to need before you go out and build something with no user in mind, which is what we've got right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that grant was structured on. From the little bit of information that I've been able to find, I think it was to get that ready as a certified site, which a certified site requires that you have the infrastructure in. Commerce they receive all kinds of inquiries for people looking for sites. And if you're certified, that tells the developer that you have everything there. You have a road, you have water, you have sewer. We don't have the electric utility, but I'm sure Evergy would be love to serve any kind of load that goes out there.
I think, at the end of the day, we're gonna have to pay for whatever anyway. I mean, just spending this money doesn't mean that we're not paying for it. We're just spending it with today's dollars, or the dollars we've got in the bank today. What does that process look like as we take those to permanent? I mean, to me, that is, I guess maybe the way I would prefer to look at that is say, to have plenty of public discussion and say, hey, we took out all this money. We got the 2.5 million from the state, we got 800 from KDOT, and then decide, when those things have to be repaid, what we do with it. And then in the meantime, collect interest on them. And then just listen to the public and tell us what their wishes are.
I think you can do that. Well, if you have a public hearing as part of the process, nothing says that you have to just say, we're opening the hearing, now we're closing it. A lot of times you may see that, but you really advertise, we're looking at this approach. And you have a public hearing, and I think even in that public hearing, you have some detail. We're looking at possibly, and I'm just throwing numbers out, we're looking at reallocating $1 million out of a potential, just reallocating $1 million for this road project or for this, and you put that in the public hearing. So people are like, well, wait a minute, I don't think you ought to spend money on this or this. And they're more apt to come other than just saying, we're going to spend $1 million. I think that's how you get people here to give the input. But that would be starting the process. If you start the process, nothing is final until you say it's final. This is what we're going to do.
Right. I think that's what would help me, just having a list in order of severity or need.
Yeah, we can do that. And then there are models out there that are used by KDOT or other entities where you can say, here's our cost today. If you do it in 2030, this is what we project it will be. As you know, the FAA, they let you hold grants for 4 years. So they're projecting those costs out and they've got models for that. So yeah, we can get that information to you.
Okay.
So
what is that? So I guess kind of the way I look at this also is we have to go to a permanent bond in 2029. We can't pay off anything before 2027, correct?
Correct.
So in 2029, we can say, hey, we want to do the full 10 million. I'm assuming we can't do more than that without another bond offering. I guess we're going to do a new bond offering anyway,
Correct.
right? So, I mean, at that point, we could decide, hey, these are priorities, we want to bond them. I mean, there's really nothing that's keeping us from just selling additional bonds other than a couple of meetings and some paperwork.
Yeah, and deciding, and not having a crystal ball saying what that insurance rate's going to be or what the city credits rating is going to be. I mean, that can go up, it can go down, depends on how the next 4 years go financially for the city.
I think it'd be helpful to have that list, but I guess personally, I would prefer not to make a hard decision on it until we have more concrete numbers.
Like estimated cost? Yeah,
I mean,
not a problem.
I think we also need to know if that 2.5 million is going to sit in the bank account for a year or two.
I've got a timeline. I didn't bring it with me from the engineering. I don't think Brett has it with him, but I can shoot that in also.
I guess what I'm saying is we've got the money twice. We bonded out the money and we're going to get it from the state.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying is we're going to have at least 2.5 million that we're going to have we don't even have the option to pay it back until 2027.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll at least have a year and change of interest on that 2.5 million.
Yes.
And thankfully that 2.5 from Commerce, there's no interest rate attributed to it.
Yeah, and
So it's
for me
it will help cover some of the if we do run into that negative arbitrage scenario, the money from Commerce, we're not paying interest on it, so that would help offset some of that.
Yeah, and if we can get them to give it to us, that's just additional interest that you're getting.
Right.
Yeah, to me, it's I guess the weighing point or the tipping point is what costs are today as opposed what a cost going to be in 2027, and what are those projects or piece of equipment going to look like between now and the time you may be able to buy them. You know how the 2026 budget looks. I don't see 2027 being much better. As I mentioned before, it's going to be a gradual several years until you get back to where you were. So.
Any further questions or discussion on that item for now? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item 8F, discussion regarding amending Article 13 of the City Code regarding open records, interim city manager Quinde and city clerk Moore.
In your packet is a redlined version of the existing ordinance. Shayla worked with the city attorney to update the ordinance. Currently, our ordinance rules were adopted by ordinance 223423, and it implements the basics of the Kansas Open Records Act, but there are several areas that needed clarification to reduce some ambiguity, strengthen the legal compliance, ensure that our practices, especially centered around fees, match recent statutory changes, and modernize our internal procedures. So the updates that are in the red line ordinance, response procedures, which is section 1-1306 in city code, it codifies the 3 business day response deadline as required by the Open Records Act. What that means is the city must, within 3 business days, either provide the requested records or explain the reason for a delay and give it the requester an expected availability date or to issue a letter of denial. It also clarifies that written explanations for denials are required only if the requester asks, allows a rolling or staged production when requests involve large volumes or extensive review. I'm not aware that the city has received that, but this is preemptive because there are cities that will get requests where people are willing to pay, and it could take hours and days or weeks to get that out. Because of the size of city staff, this allows for it to be as we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time. Fees and charges sections were updated. Those were updated to match the current statute, which says that only actual costs may be charged. And staff time that is charged can only be charged at the employee's wage. You can't account for benefits. This reflects last year's legislative changes. No materials fee for electronic records unless we're using physical media like a thumb drive or a CD. And mailing and shipping must be the actual cost. And then Shayla can request prepayment if it's appropriate. It also updates the administrative internal procedures, updates the brochure and educational requirements for the local Freedom of Information Officer, which is the city clerk, establishes a formal internal review process, which is happening now. This just memorializes it in the ordinance. And each department head is the record custodian for their department's records. But when they receive a request, they must notify the city manager, the city attorney and the city clerk upon receiving a request and obtain a respective approval before responding. Generally, that approval will come from either Shayla if it's a human resource tied request, or from the city attorney if it has to do with evidence or police reports. Some of those are protected. Shayla and Aaron work with the department heads very well. They have currently. This just puts it in writing that it's required. And then requires prepayment when estimated fees exceed $25 or otherwise appropriate. So the reasons we're asking for these changes is to modernize the city's open records ordinance, to improve clarity, consistency, and legal defensibility, ensure that our practices related to fees comply with state statutes, and strengthens the city's commitment to transparency and open government. So this is just presented tonight for City Commission's review and discussion. Based on your feedback, I'll ask Aaron to draft a final ordinance for your consideration.
Just so you're aware, the red line did not come in our packet. There's a draft, but it's not redlined.
Okay,
If you
I can send that to you.
Thank you.
Are you on the online one now?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get it redlined?
I thought I was.
Mine was when I got it, but
There's a couple of notes, but it's not like
that's the red line. It's just the notes, like the balloon notes.
there's a note, for example, that says, yes, I deleted these subsections, but there's no indication what was deleted.
Okay. We can send you that, and just to make sure that you get those, we can also make those, as a list, behind each line and what's changed. Dale, you want to add anything? I know she really wanted to do this, and I said, no. I want to stand up all night.
Any further questions or discussion at this time on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to item 8G, discussion regarding amending Article 11 of City Code regarding solid waste collectors. Interim City Manager Quinn Day, unless
that
you want to
brings-
defer to Shayla, if she's really eager to get up here.
I was thinking about the fire chief. He's been chomping to come talk. So, Article 11 of the city code establishes the licensing requirements for solid waste collectors that operate in the city. The reason we're bringing that to the commission is to consider updating a key section of the ordinance that no longer reflects current practice or is an enforceable process. Currently, the code requires that waste haulers submit a certificate of inspection and approval, which is issued by the county health officer within 15 days of said inspection. County health officer doesn't do that, hasn't done it. So in the absence of the county health officer not doing it, city staff was inspecting them themselves. We changed that to reduce liability, and the notes or the renewal letters we sent out said that bring us a certificate that you're required to have from the state of Kansas, either issued by the KHP or KDOT. Commercial vehicles are required to have that annual inspection, which was the intent of this. Having our own folks do it, there is a level of liability that if one of our employees said, yes, this truck is mechanically sound, and it wasn't, that could get us in trouble. Having a licensed or certified inspector do that and provide it to us is the preferred method. So the way the code is written, the applicants can't meet that requirement. We can't enforce it, and it creates a barrier to licensing. So state law already requires these vehicles to either get a KHP commercial motor vehicle inspection or a federal motor carrier safety inspection, either of which would ensure the mechanical safety and regulatory compliance for commercial trucks, which I believe is the intent of that ordinance. Our recommendation would be that the commission allow us to bring you an ordinance that would update that section of code and replace the outdated health officer inspection requirement with the requirement that they submit a valid state of Kansas commercial vehicle inspection certificate.
Can we just repeal the whole thing?
And not license them?
Yeah.
Sure.
If somebody wants to take trash out of my neighborhood without a license, I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're already, how many other hoops are they jumping through already? You said they have to have something from the highway patrol or from.
To operate a commercial vehicle, they have to, whether it's here or anywhere, they have to have this safety inspection. I think the licensing of the haulers in town makes sure that they understand what the rules are and that we're aware of who's doing it in case a resident or a commercial business were to have an issue or complain.
And there's an argument with those specific kind of vehicles, just the wear and tear that those particularly put on city streets where you have residential streets that
Yes.
aren't rated for that level of traffic. There could be which is why a lot of communities bid that out and only have one trash hauler go through
Right.
town. Where in our case, we've got 3 different ones that each drive independently. So,
And this requirements of license also make sure that they don't use a 3/4 ton pickup and just throw it in the back of the truck.
Is that illegal?
Is that illegal?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Unless they cover it like you would see with the roll-offs, those big, they have to have that covered. So anytime you haul something, trash across the highway, you have to have it covered and secured.
that's a requirement of anybody though, not just a trash hauler, correct?
Correct.
What is, wasn't able to find the license fee. What is that?
It was $25.
I think it's $36 per truck.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, you should have come up and given this.
Again, I'm fine with repealing the whole thing. I don't think if every truck is already getting a safety inspection, I don't know that we need to license every single one. I think it makes sense if it's $25 or $36 for a company.
Per truck.
I know, I'm saying I'm fine with $25 or $36 per company so that we do know who's on the streets. They usually have their name on their truck, so I don't think there's gonna be any confusion there.
I think to Commissioner Witt's point, some of that is to offset the excessive deterioration of certain roads in town, like asphalt roads that don't have curb and gutter, or your alleys are pretty much too small to drive through with those.
I think it's gonna have to be a lot more than $36 to do that.
Any further questions or discussion on that, Adam? Seeing none, we will move into department reports. First up is 9A Fire Department.
Yeah, I just want to pass along, we did receive delivery of that new truck that we ordered back in October 2023. It showed up this morning, so the guys will be out doing some training on that. And then early last week, the skid unit that we got 100% paid for, I believe through the Homeland Security grant, it got completed and is now in that brush truck that we got used. So we got a real nice truck for relatively very little investment. So
Thank you. 9B Community Development Inspection, Code Violations, not here. 9C Community Development Inspection, same thing.
Can we talk about that really quick?
Yeah, because they were in the packet, the reports were.
Yeah. I'm just looking at this annual violation summary here. So we've got 0 abandoned vehicles the whole year. I think we all know that's not true. Again, there's just drainage. Again, I'm not sure how these complaints are categorized, but certainly there have been drainage complaints. Maybe those were just on Facebook. I think that some of those have hit the city as well.
Shayla looks teed up, but I assume it's formal people actually going through the process and.
I was just gonna say Carrie is not here today.
Right.
Would be the one to be able to answer these
Yeah.
questions for you, so.
What is the process for someone to make a violation complaint? Well, let's say anything on that report. I mean, we've got abandoned vehicles, blasting.
Considered a nuisance vehicle. And it's not insured, not tagged, or not operational. So that's community development. That's that.
Hard no.
So this would be able to be community development. You want to know the process or the step?
I'm just curious. I mean, it seems like there should have been things that were complained about that are not showing up in this report. So if I see a abandoned vehicle, for example, how is that getting handled by the city? Is that just going straight to the police department, or is it going through? I mean, it seems like this is under community development inspection, but it seems like something that would probably go through the police department on that one specifically.
And this could have to do with the type of code. So an abandoned vehicle would be what I would consider, maybe the chief has a different opinion, one that's left on the road. This part, nuisance vehicle is one that missing its tires, operable.
And most of the time, I mean, if they're abandoned on the roadway, the owner of the vehicle gets called and told to move it.
That's
So a lot of times it alleviates itself. Right. Right.
And a lot of the community development, as far as nuisance vehicles or overgrowth, those are complaint based. So, yeah, they receive those complaints, they'll go take a look at them. Like building permit here, you have zeros across it, not violated, somebody violated it. It's not that we didn't issue any.
Thank you.
Next item is 9D, Police Department. You have any?
You guys want to touch on?
Yeah, just reading through it in case you have anything you want to add to what was included.
Things real quick. Did a Packer police car event at West Country Mart last weekend that was very successful. I think we raised over $400 some for kids in crisis, and then a whole cargo area full of non-perishable food items that we were able to donate. Tomorrow morning, shortly after 8 o'clock with the police department, I'm going to be issuing a Citizens Life-Saving Award. We had a citizen who experienced or was witnessing a situation, intervened, quick action on administered the Heimlich maneuver at a bus stop on a 10-year-old child. I think without her quick actions, it may have been a different outcome than what it was. So we'll be recognizing her tomorrow at the police department and on social media. Other than that, we have a new police officer start on the 17th. And then a second police officer will be starting on December 1st. Both of them are uncertified, and they'll go to the academy likely in late January. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brad, do you have anything for Public Works?
Just a quick update, the contractor for the building repairs at the wastewater treatment plant is now on site, and they have began. So we're in that process. We did get our LSLI information returned to KDHE for our yearly. There's an annual deal we have to do about this time of year every year to send notices out to public and everything. That's KDHE directed. So we got that done, and we've just been spending time wrapping up as many projects as we can before the weather hits. And as you can see around town, we got most of the Christmas decorations up and ready to go. So
Thank you. Next item is recess of the regular meeting in a few minutes.
That'd be good.
Okay.
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
I just do 5. I feel like we always run over anyway, so I might as well just do 5.
I'll make a motion to recess our regular meeting for 5 minutes, resume in this room at 5:53.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Commissioner Meisenberg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Commissioner Kohlhoff.
Aye.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. We are in recess. Well, now I'll call to order the November 24th, 2025 City of Abilene, Kansas City Commission Study Session. Our first item is 2A, review and discussion of extraterritorial water and sewer connections. Interim City Manager Quinn.
Yeah, for tonight, we wanted to focus on how the city handles water and sewer service requests for properties outside the city limits. The goal tonight is just to review the current city code, make the commission aware of gaps or inconsistencies within the code, and then discuss some policy recommendations to ensure clarity, consistency, and alignment with the city's comprehensive plan that was recently adopted. So right now, city code covers water and sewer connections in various places. Article 1 of the Utilities General Administration states that all applications for water or sewer service outside the city limits must be referred to the governing body for approval or denial. This applies to both utilities. But in Article 4, there's a special section on extraterritorial sewer connections that addresses only sewer and not water. And that has requirements that no sewer connection can be made outside the city without the commission's approval, and that the sewer line extensions must meet the city and state specifications. Then you move into Article 2, which talks about the sewer utility and lists its technical standards. Article 8, which covers water utility, establishes technical standards for water connections, metering requirements, fees, and rights of entry. But it doesn't reiterate the water connections outside the city also require the governing body approval, and it creates ambiguity because Article 1, which says that it requires the governing body's approval, doesn't provide any standards of what it has to meet outside the city.
Is this all chapter 7?
It should be, yeah, chapter 7 under utilities.
Okay.
Yes. So the identified gaps in the current code: sewer service outside the city's clearly governed. Water service outside the city limits is not addressed in Article 4, which talks about extraterritorial connections. So for staff and for customers, it creates uncertainty about what the review process is for the water request, construction. And by that, I mean, it has to come to the governing body, but what information do we bring to you? Does it have to meet the code that's required inside the city? Those specifications, the construction or extension standards, when the city should or should not extend water service. And then we also identified administrative consistencies, gaps between water and sewer policies. So the comprehensive plan guidance recommends that the city not extend water or sewer service outside the city limits without first requiring that applicant to sign a no protest annexation agreement for a period of time. So if I live outside the city limits, just on the other side of Van Buren, and I want to connect to city water, I'm not in the city limits, I pay the fees, I go through the process, the governing body says yes. The comprehensive plan suggested that as part of that process, I should sign a no protest annexation agreement, saying that within the next, say, it's 10 years, the city decides it wants to annex a portion of land which I'm in, that I'm saying I won't fight that. That's in the middle ground of what some municipalities are doing, that if you want water, sewer, or electric service within outside the city limits, some are requiring that you just flat annex. What that can do, though, is create sawtooth boundaries, because you got this place over here that annexes and this one doesn't, and it makes it difficult. So this no protest will allow for future planning. If the city wants to annex 30 acres over here for a subdivision, and it encompasses this one house that got water sewer service a year ago, and it makes sense to annex their property, that they won't protest it, what that's saying. And that's a common practice now. Most municipalities will either require annexation or the no protest. Without going through all the, I guess, nuances of all the codes, we're recommending that the commission direct us to work on expanding Article 4, cover both sewer and water connections. Article 4 is the one that addresses extraterritorial connections. And that would, Article 4, as we would amend it, would require the city commission approval for both water and sewer extraterritorial connections, would provide clear construction and extension standards for those water and sewer services, and cross-reference to technical standards which are contained in Article 2 and 8. So rather than writing all the technical standards required of our in-town customers, which are in those two articles, 2 and 8, we would just reference those in the extraterritorial section. Require no protest annexation agreements. What that does is it provides long-term fairness to taxpayers, consistent growth management. You can choose and not have pumpkin tooth city limits, and it preserves future annexation options for the governing body as the city grows. And then also for us to standardize administrative and review procedures, which would require application materials, evaluation criteria, such as what capacity are they going to need from water, the proximity to our water mains, the cost to the city, if annexation at the time makes sense, or just a 10-year no protest, and then standardized documentation for commission approval. So right now, if somebody were to come in and say, I'd like water service, under the current guidelines, we just tell them, well, come ask. And then if the commission says yes, then we make it working backwards. What we're asking to do is to update these codes so extraterritorial requests are covered in Article 4 for both sewer and water, cross-reference those technical standards, which are in Article 2 and 8, that apply to people who live in the city, and then have a clear process of what we need to know, the capacity they're asking for, the proximity, the cost, annexation, those types of things. We can present to you as the governing body all the information that you'd want to have to make that decision. What's the impact on our system? Or what's the, how far out of town is it? What's that going to cost us to upgrade our system? What happens in 10 years if we need to replace that system? Who pays for it? Just gives you more information.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track. With having a process in place that makes it clear for staff, us, and the public. And I do like the, as part of that, entering into that no protest agreement. So even now, we have areas of town that are wonky like that, and eventually it may need to get cleaned up. But yeah, if you do run into expansion, it makes that a lot cleaner, and they're voluntarily entering into it if they want those services. So.
I think you have some water service that's quite a ways out, a park or something like that, a park.
Redbud Lake.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a lot to throw at you with this code and that code, but I'm in a nutshell, you have a section for extraterritorial connections. It only addresses sewer. We'd like to throw water into that, reference it to the technical specs that are in section 2 and 8 for each type of service, and then have a clear what's required application and information that we bring to you, so you have more than just we want water service.
Is this intended to encompass storm drainage as well?
No.
Have any other questions or discussion on this?
Is there a reason it does not include stormwater? There, it mentions it in that chapter 7 under sewer discharge regulation. I think there's, let me see what I was reading here, under extraterritorial connections, under 7-402. It says any person residing outside the city desiring to make a connection with the sewers and drains of the city. I guess you can interpret that however you wanted, but
Yeah, stormwater is under its own chapter. It may have some references as a utility, but generally, for you to provide storm water drainage outside the city limit, it requires some type of infrastructure. This, when somebody asks for a water connection, they pay for anything that is required to connect to us, service line, or even if it's a main extension, which is one of the things that we think you would want to know as governing body making that decision. Same thing with sewer lines. But if we put in stormwater drainage system to serve this customer, that would impact everybody around. So I don't think we'd want to do that.
I guess I'm not expecting necessarily there's infrastructure, but I think we have at least a possibility that somewhere that we're providing water to would also, we would have stormwater runoff from them. And again, this is probably more on a commercial side than residential, but I didn't know if that was something that needed to be addressed.
Well, that would be addressed through the subdivision and zoning regulations. And that's one of the things we'll be bringing to you also is references to the city engineer. So if you're going to develop a piece of ground more than an acre, I believe it's an acre, that you have to have a drainage study completed to see how it's going to impact your neighbor.
I guess just so I'm clear, I'm specifically speaking to somebody that would be using city utilities that would be extraterritorial, where the city zoning regulations would not pertain to them necessarily.
Then we could not do anything with drainage with them. We couldn't put any imposition or regulations.
Well, I guess if we can put impositions and regulations on their water, I mean, would we want to regulate their stormwater if we're going to provide other utilities to them, whether it's water, sewer?
I guess the blunt answer would be no, because we have enough stormwater drainage issues in town. We wouldn't want to add to it.
I guess what I'm looking at is we would require some type of stormwater mitigation or management if we're going to provide any other utilities to that, say, commercial user just outside of the city limits.
I guess that would require a study on what is their improvement going to cause as for stormwater. I'd assume that'd be handled by the county. If they're not in the city limits, they're zoned. We're just asking for them to be, if somebody wants to connect to our system, we can impose our regulations on them because they're connected to our system. That's just KDHE. But I can't tell somebody outside the city limits that you have to make stormwater improvements. I mean, you can make that a condition of connecting, but then what standards do we hold them to because we don't have authority out there?
Yeah, the only time I could think of that being a major issue is if it is a commercial or an industrial site outside of city limits, but we've come to an agreement for them to tap into our water system.
Yeah, but if they're out physically outside your city limits, you couldn't regulate the stormwater.
Right.
Well, but they might not always be either. I mean, we've got plenty of just developments that we've done within the city where we didn't do proper storm drainage and it's caused an issue. And if they're signing something that we can annex them at a moment's notice, you know, it might eventually be our problem. I just don't know if we have the opportunity to be proactive. That might be.
I think your proactivity then would be to require annexation. Because then once they're annexed, you could say, here's our requirements as far as drainage studies and zoning and stormwater. And they would also be contributing to that stormwater fee.
Yeah, I feel like that would fall under pretty case by case basis.
Yeah.
That we would probably have to come in, we'd have to approve the extraterritorial hookup anyway.
Right.
Where we could, for extraordinary circumstances like that, we could impose additional requirements or restrictions.
Or you could say, hey, we're concerned about your stormwater runoff impacting whatever, so we're going to deny it unless you address this. But yeah, you could do it that way.
Further questions or discussion on that, Adam? Hearing none, we'll move to 2B, review and discussion of city code references to city engineer, interim city manager Quinde.
There are numerous sections within city code that refer to a city engineer. So tonight I want to just focus on reviewing those references throughout the code. Give you our recommendations on which duties actually require a licensed engineer, which ones can be performed in-house by city staff, and then where we can amend city code to reflect those. Where right now it requires a city engineer. We don't have one. We do it ourselves just to clean it up. So the city doesn't currently employ or contract with a formally designated city engineer. We have a master service agreement with Olson Engineering, but that master service agreement is basically takes that standard form, multiple pages, and that's approved. But any work that's done by Olson has to be authorized by a work order, which is how it comes before the city commission. I reached out to Olson to see if they had anything that I wasn't aware of that designated them as a city engineer, and they said they did not. They just do it as a as needed basis. So, like I said, the code contains multiple references. Some of these were written decades ago, which no longer reflect current staffing, modern practice, KDHE requirements, development standards, or the city's organizational structure. Some of the duties that are in city code that speak to a city engineer must remain that way because it requires a licensed engineer, such as drainage study, subdivision engineering review, while others can be assigned to public works, utilities, or community development. So section 6301 talks about sidewalk grade. Right now, it requires engineer to establish a grade. It's our opinion that engineering is not required if the grade is already established. So if the grade's already there, that you just want to put some concrete in to make your driveway, we shouldn't have the customer have to pay for our engineer to come in and say, yeah, that's good grade. City staff can issue the or approve this based on approved specifications is the term they use. So there's a book that we maintain that has the specifications for driveways or for concrete and those types of things. If no grade exists, which would typically be a new development, then a licensed engineer would be required and the developer should bear the cost. Same thing with a driveway permit. Currently, city code requires that a city engineer approve all driveway plans. Currently, staff has been doing this and can continue to perform this using the existing city specifications. It's our position that a city engineer is not needed and would add undue cost and burden to the applicant. The culvert cost schedule, which is in 6507, we would recommend that you take out the reference to the city engineer. Right now, the customers charge for the actual cost and we don't charge them for staff or equipment time. The code says that the city engineer will establish a table of cost based on the type of equipment. City staff can do that. They can go out and figure out what 6-inch pipe's going to be. Let the customer know. They say, yep, let's go for it. We put it in and we keep on moving. Like I said, city code does not allow us to charge for staff time or equipment for driveways or culverts. Culvert grades for reconstruction. Somebody's taking out a bad pipe and putting it in. Staff can do that along with the sizing. For new culverts and development, an engineer may be required, and that should be the developer's cost to bear as part of the development program. Under public utilities, industrial wastewater characteristics, it says that a new industrial customer should submit their wastewater reports to the city engineer so he can determine if it meets the maximum contaminant levels. Well, those maximum contaminant levels are already listed in city code, talking about things like BOD, which is biologic oxygen demand, and ammonia, not pneumonia, and those types of things. So this one's requiring that a new industry comes in, submits this report to the city engineer. There's that cost for him to review it when we already have them established. The better idea would be to annually or every 2 years, look at our wastewater treatment plant, how it's performing, what the EPA requirements are, and then update those MCLs ourselves. If an industrial customer came in and their waste was right on the line, we may say, okay, we want somebody to come in and tell us what improvements are necessary to our system to handle that. so you don't turn somebody away. Private sewer lines across right of way. This one depends on the context and how you read it. If somebody is simply crossing a city right of way to connect to an existing sewer main, that can be handled through a right of way permit and a sewer tap application, which would be sufficient. If they're crossing the city's right of way without connecting to our system, they're just connecting to somebody else's system, then we want that to be engineered. So it's because they're working in our right of way. Cross connection control. We're recommending that you replace the city engineer with the public works director or the street and utility superintendent. City already has certified staff on cross connection or backflow prevention that can see that. We also think that the timeline of 6 months to submit plans and 6 months to comply is too long. This section of the code is if the city finds that a customer has an issue with their plumbing that does not prevent backflow into our system, which is a KDHE violation as a public water supplier. Currently, it says they have 6 months to get us a plan how they're going to fix it. And then once we accept the plan, they have 6 months to fix it. That's an entire year. That's not acceptable at KDHE standards. We'd say that that should mirror what their requirements they impose on us.
What is that requirement?
What's that?
What is the requirement from
Off the top of my head,
KDHE?
I couldn't tell you.
Is it 30 days or something?
I'd just be guessing if I can find that out and send it to the commission. Drainage appeals. Right now, an engineering review is needed for appeals, which that is fine. But our recommendation is that the engineer's cost should be borne by the applicant appealing the assessment. Right now, the city pays for those. And the idea behind saying the applicant should pay for that is because you're just talking about drainage and how the measurement is calculated. If the city paid for every one that we had, you could run into a situation where people are like, well, I'm just going to appeal, and you'd be on the hook for thousands and thousands of dollars. Stormwater collection fee, which is section 71208. Currently it lets the city engineer set the billing intervals for non-utility accounts. So if somebody goes to what Commissioner Kohoff said, if somebody had stormwater, was being imposed a stormwater collection fee, which I'm not aware that anybody is, that lives outside the city limits or is not connected to our sewer and water, it says the city engineer has to set their billing interval. That billing interval is the same for all customers. I couldn't tell you what it is, but I don't know why we pay an engineer to say that you should follow your same billing interval. It has nothing to do with what we charge them. It's just how often we charge them. Stormwater and critical drainage areas. The code assigns this to the city engineer. Originally, our first thought was, well, the stormwater management policy assigns this to the public works director. But in the context that it's written, that should remain with the city engineer. What that'll do is you can approach that two ways, where if you have a new development, you have the city engineer say, is that in a critical drainage area, which would trigger certain requirements for stormwater runoff. Or you have an engineer come in and map the city and put in areas, kind of like your NRP. You have little sections, your neighborhood revitalization plan. This is a critical area, this is a critical area, and even do outside the city a mile or two. And that way, if a developer comes in and wants to develop an annex or do all that, they know from the get-go, and we know from the get-go, you're in a critical drainage area based on the topography of the city. If that makes sense. You could do it, I guess, preemptively. We bear the cost to do it, but if somebody comes in, it's quick. We know there's no hesitation, or you make them do it every time, which would really slow down the project. And so, off-street parking talks about paving requirements. We don't believe that an engineer is required, as the city code states. City staff can apply the adopted parking area specifications, which are already in the subdivision regulations. Same thing with the Appendix D under the subdivision regulations, street standards. It says that an engineering is needed for street system layout, intersection design, protection of adjoining property, street grades. That's good for new developments. Currently, we pay for that. We believe that the developer should pay those costs. Subdivision without sewer requires percolation tests. We believe that an engineer should continue doing that, but again, a lot of these, you'll hear me say this, the developer should pay. It's been the city's past practice, we just pay that. So the developer's not covering those costs, existing customers are. Drainage easements, the developer must submit a drainage study based on a 100-year flood. We do believe that engineering is required, but they should pay. The developer should. Same thing with engineering drawings. The developer should pay that cost. Plan and review and approval, they should pay that cost. Water and sewer requirements. If engineering is needed to ensure KDHE compliance and proper system design, which it is for new developments, a developer should pay that. And for septic tanks, historically, a city engineer has not been involved. We can manage permits using our existing standards. And then if there was an unusual site condition, bring them in as needed rather than requiring them on every one. City code even requires that a city engineer determines what traffic signs and control devices that we can use within the city. We don't believe an engineer's needed because staff can use that using the manual for uniform traffic control devices, which is the one that KDOT requires we use for Buckeye and the streets that enter it. And we can also use the site triangle requirements that are already outlined in city code. Our overall recommendation is to revise the city code to reflect when engineering is not needed and insert in there which staff can perform the task and under what specifications, when a licensed engineer is required, and clarify that the developer pays those costs. And what this will do is create clarity and consistency across the code, reduces confusion, and it eliminates outdated or unenforceable provisions of the code. There's a lot to go through. It's kind of like the other one. What we're trying to do is just clear up the code to make sure that how we're operating is reflected in the code. So we're not saying you have to have an engineer do this when we haven't done it in years. And if we did, it would cost the people doing these developments, somebody wants to put in a driveway or improve the driveway, extra money that they don't need to pay. I'm ready for any questions.
Questions or discussion on that one?
There's no major concerns. Our next step would be to bring each one of those codes redlined so you can see them in the context of the whole chapter. Because I rambled through them quickly just to get the conversation going. So as Commissioner Koloff said, those are chapter 7, I believe, for the utilities. We bring the whole code and then show where those changes are and then talk through how those apply and why we're asking for them.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful for before our next meeting. Any further questions for now?
No.
Seeing none, we will move to item 2C, discussion clarifying the city's agenda structure and study session purpose. Interim City Manager Quinde.
Ordinance 23-3429 authorizes optional study sessions following regular meetings. And I use the word optional because the code uses the word may. The ordinance makes it the duty and responsibility of the city manager as it relates to study sessions to determine the manner of staff attendance, the content of the study session, and the conduct of the study session. The use of items for discussion on the regular agenda within that packet, combined with the existence of study sessions, has created uncertainty about where items belong and which agenda do they belong on. I've had one commissioner has expressed his interpretation that every item should appear in a study session before being placed on a regular meeting agenda, including items such as board appointments or policy changes. Those expectations have not been communicated to me by the commission acting as a body, nor is it reflected in the current city code. So the purpose of tonight's discussion is to outline why such a practice doesn't align with city code, municipal norms or best practices, and then at the end get guidance on what the preference of is from the whole body. So the city code does not define when an item should be placed under items for discussion in a regular meeting versus when it should be scheduled for a study session. As a result, the function of items for discussion now overlaps with a study session, creating inconsistent agenda placement. The overlap between these two categories, combined with a lack of criteria for when to use each, creates confusion for the commission, staff, and the public. Not all items should go through a study session, although an informal practice has emerged in which every item, regardless of its nature, has been expected to appear in a study session before placement on a regular meeting agenda, including routine matters such as board and committee appointments, standard equipment purchases such as mower replacements, straightforward contract renewals, routine policy updates, simple budget adjustments, or items with clear recommendations and no substantive policy or financial impact. Nothing in the code currently requires this approach, and it's not consistent with peer cities practice. Requiring every item to go through a study session first slows down city operation and hinders timely decision-making, increases staff workload for routine matters, and unnecessarily extends the timeline for items with no policy complexity. The approach conflicts with the overall intent of study sessions and reduces the efficiency of the governing body. Study sessions, including those from peer cities across Kansas and nationally, are used for topics that benefit from extended, informal, and exploratory discussion. These types of items include forthcoming programs or initiatives, discussion on scoping of major long-term projects, budget workshops is a primary example, strategic planning sessions, long-range policy discussions, and items that require community and stakeholder engagement intensively, such as a town hall meeting. Study sessions, at least in peer cities, are not intended as a procedural prerequisite for all commission decisions. In other words, they're not a holding zone for every agenda item. They exist in concept to support deliberation, information sharing, and collaboration without the formality or expectation of action. The current overlap between study sessions and regular meeting discussion items can make it difficult for the public to understand how an item moves from introduction to decision. A more transparent structure is needed to support public understanding and trust. If you remember, if you're close as being old as me, that old commercial of I'm a bill and how it goes through the process. Across peer cities, study sessions are not a required first step for every item the commission considers. Routine matters go directly to regular meetings. This allows public business to proceed efficiently while reserving time for deeper discussions when appropriate. To clarify expectations, improve transparency, and align processes with best practices, several changes are recommended. One would be to adopt the standard agenda using the format of unfinished and new business. This improves clarity and consistency and is consistent with guidance from the League of Kansas Municipalities. This would replace the generic business items section with categories that immediately communicate the purpose of each item. Unfinished business would be items returning for action after being previously discussed under new business. And new business items would appear for action for the first time, such as ordinances, resolutions, contracts, bids, or items moving from a work study to the regular meeting. This structure aligns with common practice in Kansas, improves public understanding, and provides staff with a consistent framework for organizing agendas and preparing minutes. Study sessions should be used for in-depth deliberation and information gathering rather than a mandatory step before every action. In Kansas practice, study sessions are intended to review forthcoming programs, receive progress reports on current projects, discuss complex items such as codification, strategic planning, budget workshops, long-range planning topics, or complex policy issues. They provide space for extended dialogue, idea sharing, and exploration on long-range or complex topics where public input or community feedback may be beneficial. These steps will help the public to better understand when decisions occur and how the commission process flows. It also reinforces consistency through training and internal alignment, whether the city commission accepts staff's recommendation or rejects it. So our recommendation would be that we have a discussion on the format and either one, look at going to a new business, unfinished business, new business format. So the first item, the Mid-America agreement that's coming to the city commission. They've been talking about that now, I guess, since before you put the sales tax question on there. This is what we want to do, going through the whole scope. That would go, the Mid-America contract would go on new business. It'd be presented, answer questions, come back with the information that you wanted. And unless there was major concerns or no, we need to really work on that. 2 weeks later, it would come back on unfinished business and you could vote on it. During budget time, a work study session. Every fund should have a work study session where we take time rather than the city manager, the finance director, or department head just coming up and talking at the commission. You have a conversation. Here's this fund. Here's what we're looking at. Here's historically how it's been, and it's that informal back and forth. I've talked a lot like normal, so I will pause for feedback.
I like your idea, and I think it would be a waste of time to have everything go through a study session, like board appointments and all of that, so.
Seeing this to discuss today, and also just in my being in my last year serving on the city commission, reflecting on the past 7 years and how we've changed the format of meeting in my time on the city commission. It's a good, this is a great time to bring it up for the new commissioners that are coming on to know that the frequency, timing, and format of the meeting is up to you. And then you figure out as a governing body what makes the most sense as a group to have productive discussions, transparent discussions, and the like. And so that's where I see this being fresh in the mind, but this is really going to be a decision for when you guys are seated to figure out what makes the most sense for y'all. I will say, reflecting back on my time, I don't know if it's hindsight bias, but which it could be. Thinking before COVID, we got set into this structure during COVID of always being in this room. And we were kind of forced into that because of where the world was at. But before then, we'd have study sessions kind of in reference to this back over at City Hall, where we'd all sit around a table to discuss those items informally. And reflecting on that time, it seemed like the commission had a little bit more fruitful discussions just by a change of venue. So I'm not going to be making a decision on this, but I just say think of that even the venue is something that's up to the governing body. And so trying to think through how that structure makes the most sense to make the best decisions and also to work best venue to work as a team together to get things done. So just wanted to say that so y'all can be thinking of that.
And if I could add on to the back of that whatever the commission decides, it's essential that there's consistency through training and internal alignment, whether you accept the staff's recommendation or you reject it and continue as is. I think that you should have a dedicated work session with the commission, whether that's now, including the commissioners-elect and department heads, to review expectations surrounding those agenda placement specifically when an item belongs in a study session and when it should proceed directly to a regular meeting. And cover the expected pathway for action items, such as progression from new business to unfinished business before final action. Some cities require that an ordinance is read twice or you can vote on it. It's not a state requirement, but that's just one of those things that you should decide on. But by having a dedicated work session, as you talk through this, we'll establish a shared understanding of the process. Everybody's on the same page and we know exactly how that is.
I've got only 4 years of history, but just to kind of add on to what Commissioner Witt was saying, when I took office, the first and third Mondays were just study sessions. There was no action taken at any of those meetings. And I think that was kind of the genesis of this kind of a process where there was something that was always heard, gives ample time for community feedback before it's ever voted on, and much harder to put the toothpaste back in the tube, I guess. And it was only, I think it was after maybe my second year or some point in my second year that we went to this process of having the regular meeting followed by the study session. So there's kind of been a little bit of, I guess a lot of change really in how that's been managed over time. And I think looking at our newly elected commissioners, we'll get to decide how we want to do that going forward. I guess kind of to that point, we'll be having a new executive at some point in the near future too. And so I don't think there's any need for urgency on the matter, but I think that I think it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, I like the clarity of the unfinished business, new business. And I would echo those same thoughts of holding study sessions. It used to be the round table, but now it's kind of the rectangular group of tables. I just think it's more laid back. You can just kind of bounce things off and you have a much better collaborative spirit. And I think it gives people time to think of questions, ask questions. And for those that may not feel comfortable asking questions when you're on video, I think it assists those folks as well in feeling comfortable asking questions.
And depending on the topic, the department heads are right on that table. So
Right.
they can answer those.
Yeah.
A free flow.
And I mean, we used to have, rows of seating there that the public can attend as well. It's not like we're keeping them out. It lessens the formalness of the meeting, and I think it helps contribute to better cohesion.
And not to take away from the two commissioners elected, but I spent 8 years on the school board, and I think in year 7, I finally realized what I was doing, kind of. So it may be a learning curve the first few months. So one thing I would suggest is we put it on a work study and invite the commissioners-elect to weigh in. So rather than January, whatever that first meeting is, you have all the swearing in and electing a mayor and all those procedural things, and you've got 2 weeks later, and you may be March, April, May before you have a new manager. They're going to want to spend some time getting their feet wet. So I would suggest that you have a work study, you start talking about it now, involve the commissioners elect, the outgoing commissioners, come up with a plan. But if you decide that you want to wait until the new commissioners are seated and you have a new city manager and he or she has time to get used to the organization and the expectations, if that's a route you choose, then I would suggest that between now and then, we establish some clear expectations on what goes on a study session and what goes on the regular agenda. If that makes sense. So it's.
My preference would be so I guess Cy and Debbie in 2 weeks, would you guys be able to review that and kind of come with your thoughts and feelings on it during a study session, just so we can get your feedback?
I'm available anytime going forward, so.
Okay.
Anytime, yeah.
Okay. I think it could be helpful to have that, at least start working on that framework
Yeah.
as we move forward.
And I can provide, when I keep on referring to peer cities, what they do.
Right.
And how they utilize them, just as reference.
That'd be helpful to have like I said, have a idea of a potential framework so we can choose from. And And we talked about, the new manager coming in. I would guess the last thing that a new manager would want to do is completely change the way you're holding your meetings.
Yeah.
So I think if we can get that communicated and set up with the incoming commissioners, that would
And
be.
my assumed timing, when you get one in here, the first thing I'm gonna be doing is working on the 2027 budget. And that's gonna be quite a bit of work. Okay.
Any
It's
further,
not 7, Cal.
have any further questions, discussion on that item? I can drag it out if you want.
That's okay. I'm saying tonight, it's okay.
Okay. Have a filibuster up here. Okay, seeing no further questions, I'd consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any commission discussion? Seeing none, I'll move to roll call vote. Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kolhoff, myself, yes, motion carries. We are adjourned.